I am Dan Hounsel, editor of Facility Maintenance Decisions magazine. Thanks for joining us today. This is On the Move, getting more out of staff and resources through mobile technology. With the dwindling supply of qualified staff and contractors and the ever-increasing demands of same-day delivery culture, facility managers these days must be quick to respond, nimble to adapt, and efficient to resolve. Throwing people and money at a problem is not a feasible or possible solution. So facility managers must become smarter in the way they work and manage their resources. In this session, we'll discuss ways managers can leverage mobile functionality to deliver fluid communications, increase client satisfaction, more efficient use of resources, and better acquisition of data that will help propel facility management programs forward. Our presenter today is John Reimer, who is president of FM 360. John has more than 20 years of facility management experience in a variety of capacities and industries. He's implemented managed facility programs for companies such as Intel, Microsoft, JP Morgan Chase, and Charles Schwab. And he has worked in numerous sectors, including corporate campus, high tech, data centers, biotech pharmaceutical, higher education, K-12, healthcare, manufacturing, and municipal, state, and federal governments. With that, I will turn it over to John Reimer.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Dan. Long intro, we got to work on that one. That's want to jump into the presentation here, so appreciate it. Getting excited to move through this presentation here. So what I want to do is try to take advantage of the raising the hand icon. Y'all should have the reactions at the bottom of your screen. So I will post a few questions here just to make sure folks are awake with us still. And some of these questions, like now, struggling to hire, if you're experiencing that challenge, you can click on that reaction to raise your hand, and of course lower your hand afterwards. But you'll see a few of these little survey questions pop up in here. But with that, that quick survey, I mean, those of you that are in the facility management industry, how many of you are struggling to hire? I don't know about you, but I mean, pretty much, find a place that does not have a now hiring sign in front of it. And when you look at the statistics that have been out there, this was from, just over a year ago. You've got, 4 million vacancies, and that number is increasing. Some other stats I heard is supposed to get up to 6 million. Within the next year or two of vacancies that they just basically job openings that cannot be filled. You had, of course, they're lovingly referred to one of the outfalls, if you will, of COVID is the Great Resignation. So I think this is a little twofold where because of the Great Recession that we had, a lot of our folks that we had been, the baby boomers that we plan on retiring, well, they lost a lot of their retirement during the Great Recession, so they had to stay in the workforce longer. Economy was strong. COVID kind of hampered some things on the work side for them, so they said, you know what, I'm just going to take my exit now. And so we see this significant increase in folks just resigning and leaving the workforce. You've got corporations saying 47% shortage, and then another 69%, so more than 2/3, saying that they're struggling to hire. And we all know that. We see that when you have an open job rec, whether you're looking for something as simple as a grounds worker or an HVAC journeyman or facility manager, they're just extremely difficult to fill. And when you do think you have that position filled, they get a better offer from somebody else, and then they say, sorry, Charlie, I can't show up. And the thing that I would say, it doesn't worry me. To me, I see this more as an opportunity. But this last little statistic here, 27%, we still have another 27% of the workforce yet to retire by 2030. So we keep thinking, all right, we're going to come out of this, it's going to get better. When it comes to looking at getting our facilities staffed up, no, it's not going to get better. And we actually need to plan accordingly for that. So how do we go about doing that? And really, it's, we've been talking about, of course, during the series today, is leveraging smart buildings and technology to do more with our buildings. Here, I actually want to look at it. How do we do more with our people? Because that is going to be a key limiting resource. It already is. So we want to make sure that we can optimize how we use the resources we have And again, where us being shorthanded does pose a problem, but I see it as an opportunity for us to propel our facility programs forward and take advantage of the technology that's out there. So if we look at, this systematically, we've got our inputs. So we need to gather, stakeholder expectations, so basically your service level agreements, business climates, look at building controls, and then of course getting customer feedback and then their service requests. And we're going to focus on the last two more so today. If we look, so first question, it's another chance for you to raise your hand here on those reactions. When you look at your predominant mode of receiving service requests from your customers, so whether that's your building occupants, tenants, whatever it is, how many of you, usually get the Hey You work order? That's what I call them. Basically, as you or your facility folks are walking down the hallway and you get somebody tugging on your shirt sleeve saying, "Hey, while you're here, can you take care of this?" We get a lot of phone calls still, which is a challenge where, whether they are calling your service center, right? You're hopefully 24/7, or at least during business hours, you got your call center. But how many of them actually have your phone number and they're calling you or one of your leads or chief engineers to respond to something because, well, the service center just doesn't get to it quick enough. So you don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to take all those phone calls. And then, of course, there's the wonderful email that I think, we thought that we were progressing when we migrated from the Hey Yous, hopefully to get, the phone call to now we're going to email. That's great. At least we're getting electronically. We still have to transpose that and put it into a work order. So it's another manual process, and really it's duplication of effort. Plus, I don't know about you, but my inbox gets pretty darn clouded, and it's easy to get some of these emails lost, especially when it's a higher priority email or issue that we need to respond to. So ideally, we've been migrating our folks to using an online form, and we're actually going to look at some examples of that next. But using an online form so that they are inputting as the requester their information directly into the maintenance management system, and we'll talk about those. And then you also have mobile interface. I mean, again, most interactions, especially when people are out and about, is going to happen through their mobile device. And I know we just even saw that discussion with Siemens there of how do we leverage these little computers that they are carrying around on their person pretty much 24/7. There's a great opportunity for us to engage and solicit customer input and gather that data so that we can get it right up front and then start managing it on the process side. And then taking it a step further, they actually are starting to have artificial intelligence. So this mobile AI that takes the manual process of entering in service requests a step further. So I'll give you an example of that here too. So let's look at engaging customers. First is just the simple online service request form. It's direct entry into your computerized maintenance management system, CMMS, or integrated work management system, IWMS, or your CAFM, computer aided facility management, or your EAM, enterprise asset management, whatever 3-letter or 4-letter acronym you want to throw at it. I typically live in the CMMS world because, well, I've been around for 25 years and that's what it was called back then. So, but all these technologies are available. They have these service request forms. The key is keeping it simple. We have to keep it accessible and simple and easy for our customers to use. If not, they're going to keep emailing you and they're going to keep calling you and they're going to keep tugging on those shirt sleeves to give you the Hey You work order. So if you're not getting a lot of direct entry into the CMMS and you're still getting a lot of the phone calls and emails and the Hey Yous, definitely get that online request form up there because it is simple and most of your CMMSs have that readily available. The other thing when you start taking advantage of those online request forms is that you're able to auto route these service requests. So based off of a problem or issue type that is selected by the requester, or you can even combine that with the location, it can auto route to HVAC if it's a hot cold call, or to your general maintenance. If it's a custodial issue, it can automatically route to your custodial supervisor that's responsible for that space, for that zone. You can also take advantage of them including attachments, whether that's a file such as when you have an event set up, they're putting in a request for an event setup. Well, what layout do they need? Well, you could have them include a file and attach that, if not have a conditional form built into the service request form. You can also have them attach a picture. And that's the beauty of them being able to do this even on their mobile device, is they can complete this form on their mobile device, take a picture because, hey, it's worth 1,000 words. And so you know exactly what they're talking about or where they want you to hang that dry erase board, whatever it may be, include that. There is the login option, and I'm only mention that here is because some of your systems, they give you the option to either be an anonymous user in the sense of you do not have to log in. I'm still going to require your name and your email just so that I can follow up with you or solicit more information if necessary. But if you have them log in as a requester, and to me, I usually will have this for my more frequent requesters, they are able to go in and look at their asset or their work order history, so they can see all the requests they've submitted. A lot of times you see this as an executive administrative assistant. That is one that might have a login, or somebody that's a department head that is typically most folks will go to put in a request if they're not putting it in themselves. That's a good option. The other thing too is with a login, I can default their location so that if Betty is always putting in requests, I know Betty's in the admin building, so I can default her location to that and default her contact information, making it even quicker and easier. Plus, a lot of your systems allow for single sign-on. So you can basically take advantage of them already being logged into your corporate system, so it can automatically log them into the CMMS. So that to me is that's bare bones. That's where I would start. If you don't have that, I would work with you to get that set up and start doing that culture shift. The next thing, and some of you have seen this, and don't judge me that I took this picture, coming out of the bathroom at an airport. Okay, I'm one of those facility geeks that when I see something cool like this, as long as there's nobody around, I'm going to take a picture because this is great. It allows for me to very quickly get customer feedback on how we're doing. And this they've got good, bad, or I guess bad, good, and better. But then if there's an issue, they give them the option to scan the QR code. We can incorporate this out throughout our facilities, whether that's in a common space, like meeting rooms or restrooms, or working with higher education universities. Oh, yes. Yeah, and I'm seeing that, Dan. Thank you. Yeah, please submit questions too. We'd like to get a backlog of those so we can answer those at the end. But you scanning that QR code, and I can have those scattered around my corporate campus, especially in public locations. If you're higher education where you've got your residence halls, you could have them there, of course, in their respective rooms. Hospital, we've looked at doing that within patient rooms so that they can quickly scan it and report an issue. And then the nice thing about scanning that QR code is I can associate that code to that specific location so that nobody's having to guess where they are. Because you'd be amazed that you might work in this building, and I mean, we see this in healthcare and higher ed, especially because people are kind of all over a certain building. They have no idea what the room number is, but we as facilities aren't exactly the best at labeling the rooms correctly anyway. But so using that is very advantageous. Plus, by them scanning it, it can automatically incorporate their contact information depending on how that if that QR code is a direct link to maybe the form, or it could be an email, something as simply as the QR code scans it and it basically will submit an email. Well, now I've got their email address when they hit send. So quick and easy. You have some other systems that, we've got the QR code maybe for the general space. And this to me is that you use the QR codes is probably more for, I'll say, the transient user. And now I'm going to start talking about if I'm a corporate office, or maybe I've got commercial tenants, or I've got people that are consistently in my building, that same person consistently in my building. Well, let's have them, again, I put up a QR code that takes them to this particular app, or basically a browser that is configured for mobile for them to quickly and easily get their request put in. Again, taking advantage of QR code so it specifically identifies location, They've also got some that where as long as the user of that device allows permissions, it can identify where they are geographically. Now that might create issues if you got multiple floors, but it can at least identify their building. And then if you have the QR code, you could identify the room specifically. Very, very useful. The other thing, by having, whether it's an app or a browser-based form like this built for mobile, that you have notifications so that you can do push notifications to that customer or requester, soliciting more information, providing automated feedback. Because most customers, what do they want to do? They want to be able to tell somebody that they have a problem. Second, they want to know they've been heard. And three, they want to know that you're going to take care of them. So, or when they're going to be taken care of. So if we're able to provide that type of automated communication to, I hate to say give them the warm and fuzzy, but at least give them that reassurance that we hear them and we're going to take care of them, they're going to be less likely to call you and bug you saying, hey, where's my request? You know, why hasn't this been taken care of yet? We're giving them that automated notifications. The other thing we can do too is through those automated notifications is if we have to gain access, right? We're waiting for access, or we have to wait for a part. We can do that and give them that heads up and say, hey, we've got to order this part, should be here next Friday. We'll schedule to replace it then. All automated. So keeping them in the loop so that hopefully they stay out of your hair, because I know you and your team have more than enough to keep them busy. And then of course, attachments like with a picture. Lastly, I've only seen this from one system. I know there's other systems out there working on it. Some of you, I know I've had this type of interaction, whether I'm like renewing my registration through the DMV, where you get this automated person, AI, talking to you via your text. Same thing here. It based off of your geolocation, and whether again you're initiating through scanning a QR code or whatever, it's interactive. And so in this particular example, the person's in a building. They took a picture of, it's a piece of paper, but they took a picture of trash on the floor, and the AI basically said, oh, this is what I see that there is debris on the floor in building da da da. Is that correct? You say yes. Done. Work orders created. So that's where technology is going, because we do need to keep it as simple and quick as possible. That way we can get that feedback from them. If it takes longer than a few seconds, I think we're going to see a less adoption of getting that type of feedback from the customers, because they are going to go the path of least resistance. And if the path of least resistance is tugging on your shirt sleeve, or giving you an email or call, then that's what they're going to do. So that covers our inputs. All right, I want to get the data in, and I will tell you, I am one that says open it up. Let any of your building occupants, your customers that are in your spaces, give them the opportunity to let you know when there is a problem. I mean, I travel a lot. I wish these hotel spaces, these hotels would actually have a QR code where I could just let them know, hey, your sink's draining slowly, right? Your hot water is too hot. You might want to check that from a code standpoint. Simple little things like that. But that to me is, I want to open that up to solicit that engagement from my customers, because I can't fix it if I don't know about it. Secondly, now that I'm getting this input, and this is again focusing just on service request and I'll say some corrective maintenance, it's the processes. How do we then, as a facilities team, because I've already said we don't have enough of us to respond to what we got already. So why would I want to ask for more requests? Again, I want to get ahead of the curve, not always be behind it. So I want to get the information up front, and then let's work smarter with the resources we have. And so that's what we're going to look at next. How do we leverage technology to help us work smarter? And again, this is where I see the opportunity to leverage it that we have not been taking advantage of. And it's there, it's waiting for us to use it. We got to keep the boots in the field turning wrenches. We need to reduce our windshield time, reduce the wait time. We're going to talk about that. And then how do we do quality control on the go? Ideally, I'm moving away from having to count on my requesters and my customers to let me know there's a problem. And again, start using my building control system and us doing our own, in the field quality control inspections, or even as we're running from one meeting to the next, of being able to capture corrective work orders as we go. And then lastly is taking a look at inventory. How do we manage inventory and getting the parts where we need to as quickly as possible? So I'm not sending 2 guys in a truck down to Al's Supply House, and Al's Supply House is a little bit further away because it's Free Taco Tuesday. So they're going that extra distance to go do that. And it happens. Those of you in facilities know it's true. So leveraging technology. So let's look at our, basically we've got our different maintenance strategies. We know we've got run to fail. We know we've got preventive maintenance. I want to look at the technology that we can take advantage of through predictive maintenance, which of course has been around for decades. By vibration analysis, infrared thermography, tribology, so fluid analysis, it's there. Now, of course, using the good old buzzwords of IoT, a lot of these sensors are becoming more and more available to where we can leave sensors in the field and have them report wirelessly to different monitoring systems. And you see this especially in more critical environments, manufacturing settings, power plants, but we can start taking advantage of this even within our own facilities, even if it's, again, I've got a central plant at a hospital or at a corporate campus. Start incorporating this information because preventive maintenance is schedule and runtime based. And so preventive maintenance also, and please do not take this as me dogging on preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance typically requires me to take the equipment offline. It is typically intrusive, meaning I have to get into it to actually do the PM. Well, by me as a human getting engaged and putting my hands inside that piece of equipment, I'm introducing failure modes as well. Because when I used to do vibration analysis back in the day, or even if I'm troubleshooting something now, one of the first things I'm going to ask is who did what to it last? And a lot of times I would find that there was something that was done on a PM that was done incorrectly. That's what's causing the issue. So again, not saying PMs are bad. I'm just saying, can we not leverage technology to progress and evolve our operations and maintenance program to take advantage of predictive maintenance and then take it a step further? And now let's start incorporating these building control systems and energy management systems that are out there that are not just, again, building control systems, unfortunately, kind of get relegated to tell me when there's a fire, right? Tell me when something is outside of the alarm limits so that we can go put out that fire. They're smarter than that. We just got to do the programming to say, hey, tell me when I start deviating from optimum operations, or tell me when I'm trending towards a failure. That way we can get ahead of the curve. Don't tell me when we're already at our limits or when there's, hey, Houston, we have a problem. I want to know that ahead of time. Your energy management systems. I was actually just meeting with a client today where they have a very robust system and their predominant focus is on energy management, which is great. But why don't we expand the analytics a little bit more and start looking at not just the energy side, which yes, there's a lot of overlap between energy and of course, just general performance, but I need to start looking at risk mitigation, risk management. I need to manage my downtime. So how do I start expanding those analytics to incorporate more data points, do some analysis, and again, incorporate some of that statistical analysis to say, all right, we look like we're trending towards something that is going to lead us to failure. So we can schedule it and get ahead of the curve and plan it, because reactive maintenance is what kills us as a facilities organization, because I cannot plan out reactive maintenance. And so that's uncontrolled cost, uncontrolled labor. I need to move it to the other side of the aisle where I can actually schedule it, predict it, and get the parts on site when I need them on site. Rounds and readings is another one that I also like to mention. Rounds and readings, we love our paper logs, but I cannot query and I cannot trend paper. So if I can take the data I'm getting from predictive maintenance, incorporate the data I'm getting from my building control systems and maybe energy management systems, and now through my CMMS, I've got my technicians out there doing their daily rounds, once, twice, 3 times a day. Let's not keep that on paper. Let's put that directly into the CMMS where I'm capturing temperature, pressure, flow, you name it. That's going into the system. And then I can set up parameters on that as well. So if we go outside a certain range, easy example, you're doing the delta P, the pressure drop across your filter bank on your air handler. Well, if that is a parameter that I'm not monitoring through my building controls, then let's make sure we're capturing on our rounds and readings, and it goes into the CMMS. And once it goes beyond that, delta pressure, that change in pressure threshold, it says, hey, time to change the filters, right? That's a simple CBM that we can do. And then also with that integration with building controls, there's the APIs that's pretty easy nowadays. Or there's some CMMS systems that will do just a simple email to work order functionality. I have used that to integrate CMMS with building controls. I jokingly refer to it as integration on the skinny, but it's a quick, easy way to be able to get that information from your building control system and create a work order from it. And then lastly, that reliability centered maintenance is really just bringing all these different maintenance strategies together and figuring out what makes the most sense. That, when we look at the risk and the cost associated with it, what makes the most sense, because we want to look at not just the productivity of our equipment, but again, facilities where we are a support entity. So let's look at the productivity of our staff and the productivity of the occupants and customers as well, because we as facilities have a direct hand and impact on that, and we can leverage technology to do it smarter. Okay, so how many of you, just out of curiosity, how many of you are still printing your work orders? Let me see hands on that through your reactions. Okay, so while you're thinking about that one, paper rounds and logs, I talked about that. How about this one? Multiple spreadsheets. Whenever I work with a client and we're looking at we're doing overall facility management program assessment, and we're starting to focus a little bit more on like the CMMS, IWMS world, and how do they manage their processes. I can't tell you how much it pains me when I hear, oh, I've got a spreadsheet for that. Oh, I've got a spreadsheet for that. I purposely will set it as my end goal to try to get rid of all your spreadsheets, because it should reside in a database that you can easily get the data out in a nice presentable format, not trying to maintain all this information in various spreadsheets that seemingly will end up contradicting each other, and they'll never be current. The other thing is the double and triple entry of data. We don't have enough resources as it is. I do not need you to be putting in data more than once. And ideally that data is even automated if I can from the original source. That's where we want to look at using mobile CMMS. So with that as well, I'm just kind of curious to see how many of you are actually using a mobile platform with your maintenance management system. Okay. Good deal. All right, and then of course the last step is integrating with business systems on this. We're going to talk about how to do that integration to, again, predominantly to mitigate that double and triple entry of information. So optimize operations. First things, I want to give my engineers, my technicians, give the data to them at their fingertips in the field. So whether they're doing a PM, preventive maintenance, or they're doing a CM, corrective maintenance, or a service request, they're in the field, they get the work order, and like the example that you see here, they're doing a work order on a generator. And if you look at it, says work order history, there's 32 work orders against this asset. So I should be able to quickly click on that, because if I'm sitting there and I'm troubleshooting and go, gosh, I feel like we just worked on this thing, a month ago. I can quickly look on that work order history and see who did what to it last. Yes, gosh, we've been here last month, and then Frank was here 2 months ago, and then Sally was here 4 months ago, seemingly fixing the same problem. So there's that allows them to have that information readily available. If I look at attachments, I can attach the O&M manuals. I can attach the wiring diagrams. I mean, you name it, I should be able to have that information at their fingertips in the field, so they don't have to stop what they're doing, button the equipment back up so that it's safe, go back to the shop, go try to dig up that O&M manual and see what they need to do. So having them right there. Drawings, those are a little tougher to look at on a mobile device like a phone. But I've done it. I've chased electrical one-line diagrams on a mobile phone. It can be done, but it's useful information to have at their fingertips. And you can, of course, take advantage of using a little bit larger device like a tablet so that you're more readily able to chase those drawings down. And then you've also got the ability to associate parts. So basically pre-associate parts with a piece of equipment or a group of equipment that shares the same parts, so that if I'm up there troubleshooting an HVAC package unit, I can look at that unit and say, okay, I see what's wrong. I can click on the parts list and say, I need this part, and this part. And then that can reserve those parts. And we'll talk about that more here in a second. Second, executing the work in the field through a mobile device. And one of the things that will be key with this too is just the same thing that we saw on the service requester side is I've got to keep it simple. It's got to be quick and easy. Otherwise, they will not use it, or they're going to put in minimal effort. And when they start doing that, I'm not going to trust the data. And I really do need to get the data in the system, yes, to execute the work, but I actually need the data out of the system so I can use it for business justification as well. And just doing our own business management, because that really is what we are as facility managers and directors. We're business managers. So we need to make sure it's very quick and easy data entry. I actually try to make sure I don't like chicken pecking. I don't want them to have to chicken peck all over their mobile device to type things in. I want to use talk to text, which actually works pretty well these days. I've done it standing next to chillers and it picks up what I say. I want to use drop downs, and then again, incorporating barcodes, just walking up to the asset, scan that QR code. I prefer QRs over barcode. Your mobile devices tend to read those easier. But scan that QR code, brings up that asset. If there's an open work order for that asset, it should bring up that work order. And then I'm, executing that work order, or I'm, creating a work order on that asset, or looking up the asset history right there in the field on the fly. A labor timer. A lot of your mobile devices will have a built-in labor timer. I want them to do that again at that point in time in the field. Start the timer, stop the timer when you're done. Pause the timer if you get pulled away to go do something else, because inevitably that's going to happen. But I'd rather get real time against these work orders, as opposed to the end of the day where they go, took me about an hour and a half for this one, took about 2 hours for this one. And they do a lot of good rounding up, sometimes rounding down, but they definitely make sure that they get their 7.5 hours in for that day. It's not what I want. I want true, accurate data, and then we'll figure it out from there and see where our opportunities to improve. And then real-time updates. This to me also doing it in the field, where once I execute and complete that work order, if it's a service request, I complete that work order at 12:47 p.m. and it sends a notification to the requester saying, we've completed your work order. Please let us know if it wasn't done to your satisfaction, and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, by the way, would you mind completing our survey if y'all want to do that? But it's an automated notification, and it also allows me to then go back and say, okay, how long did it take us to respond to that request? How long did it take for us to complete that? If equipment's offline, how much downtime was accrued during that time frame? So those are all important information that I want to have. And if I'm managing my work orders in the field, not my technicians having to run back and forth and get that next batch of paperwork orders. Plus, the other thing is paperwork orders, they get lost. Coffee gets spilled on them eventually, or if they get handed back in, now my poor scheduler service center, they have to try to translate the chicken scratch and put in the work order. Let's do it right. Let's do it in the field and mitigate that double entry, essentially. Quality control on the go. If we look at that, to me, I want to use checklist. And this kind of ties back into the rounds and readings a little bit. But even if I'm a supervisor, whether I'm a custodial supervisor, ground supervisor, or facility manager, I should be able to do inspections in the field. And I want to do, whether it's a pass-fail, or I can put on a rating condition. Ideally, I can build in a drop-down on the mobile device as part of this inspection or this procedure. Rounds and readings, I should be able to enter in data, whether it's a run hours, mileage if I'm doing it for fleet, temperature, pressure, flow, you name it. You should have the capability to put in that information. And then, as you can see, even in this example, we had this one task 60, I failed it. The nice thing is that any of these that I fail in my inspection, it should create an automated work order on the backside, with the comment associated with that failed task. So again, it mitigates items slipping through the cracks. And this is also the same thing you would do on a PM. If I'm doing an annual PM on a piece of equipment, yeah, let it, if I fail a task, it's going to create a follow-up work order for me to do a corrective on that. So that's what we want to get to. I also will incorporate facility condition assessments. So as part of your capital replacement planning, you should have your FCAs, facility condition assessment, done about every 3 to 5 years, ideally by a third party. But annually, you should be doing a gut check yourself. Build that FCA into your CMMS and maintain that data there, and then you could have it integrated with your capital planning software. A lot of your capital planning software, they have some really nice mobile interfaces where they allow you to do your gut checks in the field, doing your FCAs on an annual basis too. So you've got options. The inventory in motion, especially with the strain and stress supply chain that we have these days, what I want to be able to do, and this is where it's really important for us to migrate away from reactive corrective maintenance, where unfortunately, most organizations are still more than 50% reactive. We need to swing ideally toward more like 80% scheduled, 20% reactive, or maybe 70-30. You can give yourself a little bit more buffer there. But if I'm more scheduled, I can now pre-associate parts with my PMs. So when my PMs generate for this next month, I can do a parts forecast and see, okay, what material do I need? Let's make sure I have that in-house. Let's reserve it so so that nobody pulls it out of stock, or at least they're not supposed to. Or again, if I'm working on that HVAC package unit and I'm up on the roof and I see, okay, I have these parts associated with this package unit, I want to reserve, basically request these particular parts. And this is what I would do, is have a runner, so that I'm not taking my HVAC mechanic off the roof. And again, they have to button it back up to keep it secure and run back to the shop to get the part, or to the warehouse to get the part. Have a runner that's a lower pay rate, get on their bike, get on their golf cart, whatever it is, and run that part over so that the HVAC journeyman can keep doing what they're doing and turning that wrench. Also, with these mobile platforms, you have the capability to do on-hand adjustments in the field. Just walk up, scan the QR code for that bin location, the item location. It says, hey, you should have 7 in there. I only have 5. Adjust that on hand, and then I've got to go and figure out, okay, where do those other 2 walk off later? You could also receive parts as shipping and receiving is coming up. I've got the PO, or I've got some other identifier where I can just scan it. It says, okay, here's all the items you should have. I do my count. I receive those via the mobile device into inventory. It updates my on hand. Good to go. And then if I want, I can automatically notify where I've got those parts that mechanic's been waiting for to fix that package unit. They've shown up. I can notify the maintenance tech automatically that those parts are available and that they can come and get them. And so and I have them bagged and tagged ready for them the next morning even. So again, a lot of ways that we can work smarter, taking advantage of the technology that is here waiting for us to use. And then we've got on the output side, reap the fruits. We've been doing all this work of getting the data in. I need to get the data out. And a lot of it's going to be of, one, I need to improve the customer satisfaction. So getting that fluid, open communication, ideally it's mostly automated. We've got to be careful what comments we put in our work orders, if that's going to go back to the customer. So it's just some soft skills training that you have to give to your technician and your maintenance folks. But again, getting that fluid communication, I want to make sure that we're getting a quick, fast response time, so that we're managing the expectations, meeting service level agreements. And then I think another thing is that this allows every point of contact we have with a customer is an opportunity to sell what we do as facilities. So if we're faster in the response, cleaner in our communications, it gives us a better advantage, if you will, in selling the value of what we do. It also allows us to kind of communicate our priorities. I mean, every customer need is not our top priority. We've got PMs and other things we have to do. This gives us an opportunity to communicate that and help level set expectations. When we start looking at our own staff, people will get concerned of, well, gosh, those mobile devices, I start giving those to my technicians, they're expensive. Anywhere from $200 to $400 a piece. All right. Oh, you got to get a mobile license. Again, you're spending hundreds of dollars per year for a mobile license. So let's just say all in all, it's $1,000 a year per technician to make them mobile. I could pretty easily justify that by, how many hours do I have to show increased productivity to offset the cost of that? It doesn't take much, because if I can keep them in the field, turning wrenches, getting the data I need for them real time, it's accurate, it's comprehensive, the value's there. It's just a matter of putting the package together and communicating that to management. Increasing productivity of occupants. The faster I can respond and resolve issues, the less impact it will have on productivity. And that's big money. That is how the money is made, the revenues generated. So I want to keep the building occupants happy, healthy, productive. That's our goal. And then of course, system operations. I want to keep our systems operating optimally. And that's where leveraging our building control system, doing ongoing commissioning as much as possible, taking advantage of the systems to let me know when we're deviating from optimum so we can bring it back to optimum instead of me having to wait around and putting out these fires and being reactive. And then lastly, on the outputs is just that increased efficiency, both in communication internally, because we know, especially the larger your facilities team is, the more segmented you can be. And then how do you interact and engage with your other department heads? Because we as facilities have been fighting to get brought to the executive table to, and again, as facility managers, directors, we're managing business, but a good part of managing business is managing relationships. I want to take advantage of this technology and this communication to allow me to do that. So the final output out of all this is having these data-driven decisions. Another client was just meeting with last week. This is actually their primary objective is, hey, we're running around. I know I can't really count on the data that we're getting currently. We need mobile. That's a primary function we're looking for. But the key objective is they need the data to justify resources, to figure out where to send their resources so they can better manage what they have. We have to do that. And I think, again, us being, having this labor shortage that we have, it's not going to improve. This forces us to start thinking this way and getting these type of systems in place. So I'm going to open it up to questions to see how we're doing here, and we'll go from there.
All right, great information, John. Thank you. Just a reminder to the attendees, if you do have questions, use the chat function at the bottom of your screen, and John will get to as many as possible. John, let's start with one of the questions that Amy shared with us, which is the question of getting technicians to adopt and use mobile platforms. And maybe I would fine tune that question a little bit because I think most of our attendees probably have technician workforces, some of whom are a little older, some of whom are newer to the profession, possibly more tech savvy. How do you get technicians to adopt this technology, and how does that message and those strategies differ among those groups?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's 10 years ago, if you would have asked that question to me, I would have said it actually is quite a challenge. Because I had a few meetings where I think the technicians would have rather thrown the mobile devices at me than actually use them. But over the last 5 years, I've seen that change significantly, where even, like you said, that the more senior folks that are a little bit closer to retirement, they actually are ones that are saying, well, I wish I had this yesterday. When can we get this going? And it's even more fun for me when I see them showing the new young bucks of how to use the mobile devices. So we've seen the willingness to use mobile devices increase drastically over the last handful of years. I think the key to adoption is the same process we would follow for any type of change management. Get them engaged early. When I meet with clients and start trying to assess their needs and what functionality they have, I want to meet with the executive levels as high up as I can go, but I want to meet with the boots in the field. And I want to incorporate what do they want this tool to do? What's going to help them do their job better? And once they feel like they have a say-so, and I'm taking advantage of those meetings to plant the seeds of change, that's really what they start coming out of is like, when are we going to get this? They're excited to use it. So you see the adoption of mobile devices increasing significantly, and really it's just a matter of keeping it simple and getting it to them in the field.
All right. A question, sort of a follow-up on the implementation process that you mentioned. You could assume that most attendees or most facilities have a CMMS or have, are further along in their implementation of the CMMS, but maybe that's not the case for a number of people. And I'm just wondering, in terms of purchasing a new CMMS or upgrading an existing CMMS and really focusing on mobile technology in that process, what are the priorities just in terms of looking for features and functions and capabilities for new or upgraded software?
Yeah, no, another good question. I will say though, I definitely do not want to assume that they have a CMMS, because sadly, even though it is 2022 and darn it, half this year's pretty much gone, you still have roughly about a third of your facility organizations don't have a CMMS at all, and another third are looking for a new one or looking to upgrade. So it's still pretty surprising that in our day and age that we don't have these type of robust systems, whether CMMS or IWMS, there. What I would do in selecting the technology, my advice to customers is don't go shopping yet, or at least be careful when you're shopping, because it is easy for, especially when you're working with a clunky system or you're living off of spreadsheets, it's easy to see that shiny object that says, wow, that looks cool. I really want that. That looks good. That would work for us. But you don't know that for sure. What I actually encourage my clients to do is let's figure out what you need the tool to do, both now and then do some vision setting. What do we want to grow into so that we can make sure we find a system that will grow and evolve with them. But let's find out what you really need that tool to do and then go shopping for that right tool. That's one key component. And then the other is prioritizing the functionality. You see that there's a lot of systems out there that say, oh yes, we do everything. When you look behind the curtain, you see, okay, they do some things really, really well, but they do other things, not so great. And I've had this, again, discussion with multiple customers where we as an industry, I think we keep looking for that system that can do everything well. And once you start looking again behind the curtain, you go, okay, you need to improve some of these areas. So instead of trying to find that one software that does everything, maybe you need to find the best in breed of, I want space management in this one software and maintenance and asset management in this other software, and just make sure they talk to each other. So those are some important things to make sure you identify as you start going down this path of selecting and implementing.
Let's talk a little bit about what can go wrong in this process for a manager who is looking to maximize the existing CMMS for its mobile capabilities, for specifying a new system. What are the mistakes that you see managers making, and then what are the roadblocks that they run into?
I think mistakes that I have seen is there's a lot of new systems out there where they have actually built their systems around the mobile technology, and they might be new to that technology might not be, since it's newer, it hasn't been used in their particular industry. And I've encountered this a few times where I get it as facility folks, we are control freaks, it's inherent in our nature. But if we have a software that, gosh, it looks really, really good, but man, all my other, colleagues here at these other companies or other entities, they all use this other product. Well, they use that other product because it's been around for 20 to 30 years, and that's just kind of what's been out there. Broaden your horizons a little bit, or hey, I really need an IWMS. Well, why does it have to be that 4-letter acronym? Don't focus on some of these. This is what everybody else does. This is what I need, this CAFM, or I need this IWMS. Now let's actually take a bigger step back and see really what you need this tool to do, prioritize that functionality, and let's find the right tool. Again, make sure it's a good, solid tool that's got a good history with it, but don't be afraid to look outside of what everybody else is doing.
All right. And a question on addressing the managers who are looking to maximize mobile technology for their departments. It's easy to assume that they can just do this themselves or within their departments, but often it's a team effort, and there are other folks within organizations who should be or could be involved. Who would you identify as sort of the other members of this team that managers should be working with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this again goes back to that change management approach too, is I want to incorporate the different stakeholders. And it may be something as simple as my accounts, my accounts payables. What information are they going to need? Do I have to migrate information over to Banner or SAP? Well, let's meet with them and make sure we incorporate their feedback. If I've got, again, different departments, whether that's in facilities or not, like security, sometimes they're in facilities, sometimes they're not. Let's look at what do they need the system to do? And they might not even use the system. It's more of what data would need to get pushed back and forth. So again, it's just those potential points of sharing information or potential points of integration that I like soliciting, getting that input and giving those different stakeholders basically feel like they're part of the process.